take a nap right now, so you at home, just be very quiet and put your head down, and we're all going to take a nap, and we here in the studio are going to take a nap too, right? Okay, so everyone put your head down on the tables, and let's all be quiet and take a nap. Come on, everybody. Little Susan and Phyllis and Mark and Jim, I see you now.
He was so successful up to that point. He had this group of different characters, and he had all the success from the Saturday Night Live performances, and he was on Taxi. And what does he go and do? This incredibly risky set of routines based on this professional wrestling performer dynamic.
And at the time, wrestling was still pretty much of a taboo issue. You know, it was off the beaten path. I mean, most people in show business avoided it like the plague. It still had all the old stereotypes. And most of Andy's friends were warning him, you know, you got to watch it. Don't get too involved with this thing.
Andy began wrestling women everywhere. In his concert performances, national television shows, even in restaurants and on airplanes. He proposed to open Andy Kaufman wrestling farms across the country.
I was always a fan of professional wrestling. Always loved it and watching it. And I saw Buddy Rogers wrestle once in person, and that was in 1963 when he lost his world title to Bruno Sammartino at Madison Square Garden. I was in 8th grade. I remember the frenzy that he brought to the audience, to the crowd. He was incredible. So what I wanted to do was recreate that in my act. You know, I would have to say all these nasty things about women just to get them to come on stage and just to define for the audience that the audience should be booing me.
While Andy was busy challenging women all over the country to wrestling matches, he discovered there were some very agreeable side benefits to his fame.
Andy Kaufman started wrestling, I think, from the beginning. As he told me, he said it was really hard for him to meet women.
Because Andy was a wallflower. He was a very shy guy, and he knew for a fact, and would be the first one to admit, if it wasn't for his celebrity, forget it, he never would have got laid.
Anytime he would meet a woman, he would be happy about it, but yet he didn't want to be involved. And that's the first thing he would say, don't get involved, don't fall in love with me. And sometimes that would, you know, they wouldn't like to hear that.
If the fan mail came in, and like, oh, I just think you're great, Andy. And if they sounded, first of all, if it came from a guy, it got thrown in the garbage can.
The ones that he would remain friends with were the girls who would play along and, you know, become part of Andy's traveling insanity.
I mean, he was, in the world of comedy, he was Hugh Hefner. You would never imagine it.
I always felt like Little Wendy and those TM people were like closer to him than, you know, any girl he was, you know, intimately involved with.
I mean, when he said he had this girlfriend, I go, what do you mean? You know, he actually settled down and had this girl, this lady that he loved and everything, and I just couldn't wait to meet her because it's like, you're kidding.
Andy really was kind of like a kid in a candy store with women. You know, since he got famous, he could have just about any woman he wanted, and he took full advantage of that, of course. Being Andy's girlfriend was challenging.
In the midst of all this madness, Andy began preparing for the biggest moment of his career.
One of the great events in Andy Kaufman's life was playing Carnegie Hall. I mean, it was a dream of his. And we stood opposite Carnegie Hall that afternoon, and he just looked at the entrance to Carnegie Hall, you know, the greatest edifice for performing art. And he said, I can't believe I'm playing in Carnegie Hall.